After poring over a passage or excerpt and engaging students through a close reading experience, you're going to want to culminate that activity with a writing task. We often assess students' reading comprehension through writing, and it can come in a wide variety of different prompts or formats, but 3 in particular seem to be prevalent. One of the more common is the literary analysis task. But there's also the research writing task and a narrative writing task. When determining which of these task types you want students to respond to, be conscious of a couple things. First, what reading standards, what comprehension skills were you working on in the close reading experience? Because that is what you want to assess for in the culminating task. You also want to consider what type of product do you want students to create? Do you want a persuasive argumentative writing, an informative response, or a narrative? If you want students to generate a literary analysis, then you're probably asking them to really analyze, study, compare, or evaluate the author's craft, how or why they did what they did within that text. After closely reading an excerpt of literature, you might ask students to analyze some of the literary devices, irony, satire, or figurative language and imagery. It could have been informational text, and you want them to analyze text structure or author perspective. Depending on the text and the reading standards you were working on, you're going to choose what you want students to write about. And this could generate either an informative response or a persuasive argumentative. If they're evaluating that literary device or text feature, then it's persuasive. However, if they're simply explaining it, describing it, or analyzing it, then they're going to generate an informative. A literary analysis task can follow a close reading of one text or excerpt, or multiple. However, the research writing task can only be assigned as an after-reading task if students have read 2 or more informational texts. After reading multiple texts, students are asked to synthesize across those texts, pulling multiple details, facts, and information about what they learned. Depending on how you word that prompt, again, this synthesis can generate a persuasive or argumentative response or an informative one. If you want students to generate a narrative response, then the narrative writing task is a good fit. These often are assigned after reading an excerpt or passage of literature. After reading some short story, then students are asked to rewrite it from a different point of view or insert the missing piece or tell what happens in the sequel the next time something similar happens. During the close reading experience, we were focused on the student as a reader, as a thinker. We were asking small questions, driving them back into the text to find details and annotate the text. But the after reading writing task now asks them to step back and use all that information, all that they've learned and come to understand in some type of written product. If you don't end with some kind of a written task, then students can easily skate along the surface during the close reading experience and class discussions.